So, hey, what's up, guys? Here we are yet again. We're back. We're in the same shirts. So, so we are those podcast guys. I'm Kal.
I'm Ian.
And today we are here to talk about a train wreck, a dumpster fire, a movie that I love, that I adore, it's not without flaws.
No, far from it.
But I've got no problem telling anybody that I adore this movie.
Same. I have loved this movie since the first time I watched it.
Yeah. We kind of, because the last episode we did was on Daredevil, so I very briefly kind of talked about it / discussed it or whatever. But prior to this film coming out, it's like I knew who Daredevil was. I'd seen him like guest star in a few issues here and there, like of some stuff that I would read. Never really jumped into anything dealing with the character. Didn't know a whole lot about his backstory. Nothing. Was just like, okay, they're making a Daredevil movie. I'll check that out when it comes out, And so it comes out. Pretty sure this is my original DVD copy of the film. Whenever we got it back to him, me and my brother sat down, watched it. Really walked away very much enjoying it. And then I was very much caught off guard when just about anyone else I would talk to would just be like, no, that movie sucks. And I'm like, why? And I'm not going to lie, comparatively speaking, to other superhero films of its time, a lot of their complaints don't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Agreed.
As to why they, you and I talked about prior to recording that, I would sit there and I said that I don't understand why this film is analyzed so hard and so deep. I mean, to the very minor, details for people to defend, how much they hate it. But when it comes to these other films, oh no, we love them. We love the original Blade. We love the first X-Men movie. We love the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Love them. Even though they have problems.
Very much so.
Very much, some of them very big, glaring problems.
I would go so far as to say I think the least problematic of the movies you just named is Blade.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But it's just the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film. We know the differences. You and I was talking about that before we hit record. Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Spider-Man cracks very little jokes. Is not super. It just doesn't really feel like Spider-Man to me.
No.
The Green Goblin, don't get me started. Just don't.
Love Willem Dafoe, but
yeah, not a good take on the Goblin.
Or Harry.
Or Harry. But and I like that movie too. Don't get me wrong. I like it. But it has its own problems. But so many people out there, even though it has those problems, they talk about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film with very fond memories. Same thing with the first X-Men film. That film is almost embarrassingly inaccurate to X-Men and stuff. And
I still like it, but I still agree with what you're saying.
I like it. I think it's absolutely a product of its time, and I don't think it holds up super, super well upon rewatches. The same cannot be said about X2. X2 is fantastic all the way around, in my opinion, even though it's also got its problems.
Yeah.
But anywho, my big thing is what I just don't understand is why this film gets the hate that it does. And I've heard people's complaints. I have my own complaints with it. You have your own complaints with it.
Yep.
But I've heard what people have to say about it, and it's one of them things where it's like, okay, I get it, I understand. Why don't you have those same complaints about the other films that we just talked about?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, those, it's like they don't have anything to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, unashamed. I don't care.
No.
I'll tell
I,
anybody that I freaking love this movie. And I'm
I,
not saying that in a way of I'm not meaning to cut you
no.
off, but I'm not saying that in a way of just like
Being a fanboy.
just being a fanboy or whatever. Like I freaking loved the movie and rewatched it in preparation for this episode. Watched the theatrical version. I have the director's cut as well that I watched. I remember after watching the theatrical version, I called my brother because, we had watched it together for the first time and all that. And I was like, man, guess what movie I rewatched last night? He's like, what? And I said, the '03 Daredevil film. He's like, yeah. He's like, man, yeah, that was a good movie. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I just, and then me and him had a whole conversation about it. I'm just like, I don't get it. Why it gets the hate, but the other ones don't, even though really their problems are pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Say what you were gonna say.
No, so we're filming this in early afternoon. The last time I watched this movie was this morning.
At the time of this recording.
Yeah. And again, I still have my original, DVD from '03. Loved it from the very first time I watched it. It's not without problems, but to me, it seems to me that this movie was crafted with more care and love for the characters than maybe the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie and the early X-Men movies were.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like as far as Murdoch goes, and we just talked about all of this with the last episode we did. Um, like his origin and all that is very, very faithful
Yeah.
to what Miller had come up with.
Yeah.
Like little minor, things here and there. But for the most part, like it's very, very accurate to the origin that we all know and love that Miller had come up with. And we'll go into more detail with certain things, concerning the film and all of that kind of stuff. It just clicked in my head. I'm probably going to title the name of this episode "In Defense of Daredevil 2003." Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, because that's what I'm here to do. At least I'm gonna defend it with everything that I've got. The theatrical version, I can see why some people would walk away from it just being like, it was okay or whatever. I don't understand. I just won't understand the everyone hating it the way that to the extent that they do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like part of me also kind of believes that maybe the hatred that it got is from a very vocal minority because spoilers, Deadpool and Wolverine, one of the big talking points of that movie that people were very happy to see was Elektra be in that film.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, how many fans of this movie are really out there? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And it's just one of them deals to where it's like they don't really. I mean, let's be honest here. I've been on the receiving end of it whenever I tell people that I like this movie. And, like, it gets to the point where people just flat out start insulting you. Like, well, like, you must not like comic movies, or like, I've been called stupid. Seriously. I've been called stupid for liking this movie. Like, it's dumb. Like,
Man taking his stripes for Daredevil.
Oh yeah, I ain't scared. But yeah, it's like I don't get it. I don't understand the hate. But
Well, like I know you and I were kind of discussing earlier possible causes. I feel one that this movie is largely forgotten these days.
These days, yeah, I would say so.
And two, I feel like a large part of the hate is, and again, I don't completely understand it, it's just for Affleck.
Yeah. Which that's something I will stand here and say it with my full chest. I am a Ben Affleck fan. All right. I don't care what anyone has to say. I've liked the dude in virtually everything I've ever seen him in. Like, loved him as Daredevil. Loved him as Batman.
Agreed.
You and I
Agreed.
was talking the other day, like two films that I just, if you don't like these films, quite frankly, just because Affleck is in them, you're just being a hater at this point, and that's Argo and The Town. Like,
And The Accountant.
as hokey as it is, I even like Armageddon. Like, you know, but yeah, I just like you and me were talking about the other day. I think he's just one of them guys.
Yeah, he's
Like,
just.
I know you're the one that brought that up. You said I think he's just one of those guys. He's one of those guys that you either love him or hate him, and for whatever reason, it seems like the people that hate him just up and decided, we pick you. Like, that's how you put it. Like,
It's like he's the Hayden Christensen of superhero movies.
pretty much. But just like with Hayden, you give it enough time. Like, it turns out he had more fans than he thought he did.
Yep.
And all of that. And I think that, like, a lot of people that liked this movie and everything, that whenever he was cast as Batman in Dawn of Justice, I think people like you and me were like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we know he can pull it off.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like a mutual friend that you and I used to have, that whenever the news came out that he was cast as Batman, he sent me a text. He said, "You'll never guess who got cast as Batman." I didn't feel like playing the guessing game, so I'm like, "Who?" And he sends back effing Ben Affleck. And I immediately followed back with, "I'm okay with that."
Yeah.
And he sends back like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Why are you mad?" Like, I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm fine with it." I said, I think he can pull it off."
Like, yeah, like, why are you mad, bro? Like, did you get turned down for
Yeah.
that?
Like, yeah, what's your problem? But yeah, not gonna lie, my own brother, sorry to call you out like that, but I'm gonna.
Hi, Rob.
Go to hell, Rob. but my own brother, like, whenever Affleck was cast as Batman, he immediately was one of them people of just like, I don't want to watch the movie. I think it's going to be terrible. He does not like Ben Affleck, hates him, cannot stand him. And again, one of them times where it's like, you try to get it out of him. Why? Can't give you really a straight answer. Like, well, I think he's a bad actor. What's so bad about it? Like, what were roles? Like, what did he do? Like, no answer. Like, okay, just own up to it. You're a hater. Like, that's just all it is to it. You're just being a hater. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if him being cast as Daredevil was one of the factors to it or whatever. But like,
Meanwhile, Keanu, love him, can't act. But everybody, Keanu can do no wrong. Affleck's working his butt off. Dude got freaking jacked to be Batman and was in really, really good shape to be Daredevil.
Yeah.
And man can't get no love.
No. Well, he's got two people's love for sure.
Yeah.
Now, like, yeah, again, so I watched the movie, came out of it very much like, man, it was a good movie, really, really liked it and all that. Very much talked about in the previous episode. This was my full-blown, like, intro to Daredevil. Instead of just simply, oh, he's in this he's a guest star in this issue or something like that. You know, like this is the first time me actually seeing like what his origin was, finding out anything about him and all that kind of stuff. So this was really my introduction to Daredevil. And you know this, like I don't talk about a whole lot of like my creative side um on social media or anything like that, but you know that I created a superhero like back in the early 2000s and all that was directly inspired, eventually like was more inspired by Daredevil himself, but the original inspiration for that character came from this movie.
That's awesome.
And so for me, like I just know this character that I created, that of all the characters I've ever created and like wrote short stories about and all that kind of stuff, of all of them that I've ever created, like he's the one that I'm most fond of. He's the one that I'm most proud of. And it's because of this film. And so it's like I'm always going to owe that to this movie.
Mm.
Like if I ever decide to do something with the character or not, like I'll have no problem telling anybody, like, well, oh, you like this? Well, you got the Ben Affleck Daredevil film to thank for that. Like, it's just all it is to it. So how long had it been since you've seen this prior to watching it this morning?
The last time I had watched it, I had watched the director's cut, maybe like 5 years ago.
Okay, that's not too far. It's not too long ago. It had been probably a little longer for me. Because for the longest time I was only familiar with the theatrical cut. I'd never really, I knew there was a director's cut. I just didn't actively seek it out, you know. But then, you know, I would hear people talking about like, oh, the director's cut is so much better and this and that. Like if they would have released the director's cut, it probably would have gotten a better reception and this and that. And so to me, I'm like, the director's cut is better than an already great movie. I've got to check out the director's cut. So then, I'm not going to put it up there yet, but checked out the director's cut. And yeah, after watching the director's cut, I was just like, okay, now there's two versions of this film that I love. You know, and I like them for, you know, their own different reasons. But yeah, I'll defend this movie with everything that I've got. I don't care what anybody says.
No, I completely agree. I love and um this movie does seem more excuse me, character driven than a lot of other superhero movies of its time. I love just the little extra touches that went into it, like the braille dots in the credits, the opening credits. You know, they like okay, whenever you first put in the DVD, for those not familiar with you know, actual media, but they're like whenever the 20th Century Fox thing comes up and it goes to like the sonar world thing to illustrate how he you know, senses things,
which that's one thing that I loved about the movie, is that, you know, no pun intended, we got to see what the world looks like behind his eyes.
Yeah,
like, you know, before it was just always kind of like, okay, he has enhanced senses and all that, and to the extent to where it's like we don't know exactly what it really looks like for him at this point in time before this film, because in The Man Without Fear, you know, we saw whenever he was chasing some goons or something like that, like he rounded a corner and he was running straight towards the cops and didn't even realize it for a little while, you know?
right.
So it's like until it like clicks in his head, like, oh, dang. You know, but in this, it's obvious. Like, I love the fact that they made it to where, like, it's almost as if he can see the sound waves.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely it.
I love, you know, at the beginning when he's chasing
Casada.
Whenever he's chasing Casada, and he hits like and like you see the sound wave go, and then he hits it again, and it like he zeroes in on him down there in the corner. Like, yeah, I freaking love that. But yeah, so as much as we both love the film, it's not without its faults.
Agreed.
Like you and I, we were talking about it prior to starting recording. If anything, you can say we were kind of practicing, if you will, for some of the things that we're going to talk about and discuss. So I think, let's talk about some of the things that we love about the movie, and then talk about some things that we either straight up didn't like, or like they could have done better.
Okay.
So I think, first of all, one thing that I'm going to mention, and we can just kind of take turns if you want. One thing that I'm going to mention specifically that I really like about it, to where I'll openly say, as far as soundtracks go, not scores, because there's a difference. As far as soundtracks goes, the soundtrack to this film is probably my favorite soundtrack of any movie.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I saw. I mean, yeah,
This is, I've had this since I got it. Okay, like, yeah, I've had it for a while. It's gone through about 4 different vehicles at this point. It's been buried. It's been had stuff thrown on it. Like I've gotten it and just thrown it in the back seat and all that stuff. Cool. Like me and this disc have been through a lot.
if that disc could talk.
Like, yeah, but this is probably my favorite soundtrack of any movie. I'll just plop this right here. Of any movie that I've ever seen.
Okay.
Again, not the score. Like my favorite score belongs to Conan the Barbarian.
Oh yeah, yeah, that is the correct answer.
Yeah, but so yeah, love the soundtrack. I think if I know that some people can be very outspoken about like early 2000s bands and stuff like that. And let me tell you, they've had some different yeah, oh, yeah.
Talk about a product of its time.
It's very much a product of its time. Just to let you know, there's a song by The Calling that's on here. So, mm-hmm.
I mean, you got Fuel, Seether, and Nickelback on one disc.
Wow. Yep. I think what so many people like, probably, let's be honest here.
I gotta wash my hands now.
Let's be honest here. The songs that really that most people think of whenever they think of like the soundtrack for this movie were the 2 tracks from Evanescence and all that, which rightfully so. They're the 2 best songs on the on the album. But yeah, I freaking love the soundtrack. I got it. I would jam to it. Like, I mean, I'm not talking like I wouldn't skip any any songs or nothing. Just jam to it. So yeah, big fan of the soundtrack. So that's my first entry into the things about this movie that I loved.
I love the opening credit sequence is one of my favorite opening credit sequences of any movie. With you have the cityscape and the lights in the windows, and it highlights certain ones, and they come together to form Braille, which forms the credits. Mm-hmm. I always thought that was just beautiful and so just incredibly in keeping with the world of Hell's Kitchen. And I remember being taken aback initially and very appreciative of just the little things that you and I don't or might not think about that a blind person goes through their day to day. Like how he takes, whenever he's getting ready and he's got the 3 boxes with the 3 denominations of dollar bills,
Mm-hmm.
and he folds each one differently.
So that he just knows which is which. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. One thing, talking about like the city and all that kind of stuff, like I love that this movie, it really just gave New York an entirely different kind of feel. And what I mean by that is
it isn't the bright, shiny
the
Spider-Man.
The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie takes place in the same New York.
Yeah.
It's not in a shared universe or anything, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's like to watch the Spider-Man movie and see that New York versus watching this and seeing Hell's Kitchen. It's like, you believe you're in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Like,
and this movie does what not a whole lot of other movies do, in that the location, the city, is its own character.
Mm-hmm.
The only other times I honestly can't think of a whole lot of examples. Probably the most obvious one will be Batman movies. Gotham City is a character.
Yeah.
In the Batman universe.
Yeah, especially like the Keaton film and all that. Like, very, very much like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain.
and that is something that emerged for me whenever I, was kind of seeing this again with fresh eyes this morning. There were moments where I'm like, man, this it's really giving me like Burton Batman vibes, but not in like a just purely imitation way.
Yeah.
It was just like the essence. They share DNA.
Yeah, like one scene I think that I absolutely can think of would be like whenever that one goon is beating up that guy, and like after he knocks him out, you just see like the silhouette of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Rise up like and like like I get it. I get what you're trying to say. One thing that I like, of all the things, whenever it comes to this film, love or hate or whatever, that I've really never heard anything negative said about it, it's Colin Farrell's Bullseye.
I love and simultaneously cringe a little at Colin Farrell's Bullseye.
I do not cringe in the slightest at his Bullseye. I love everything about it.
the part with the rose, man, it's such a small thing.
He gives it to him. He's like,
oh yeah, that's great.
And I was talking to you about this before we started recording, but in the director's cut, there's an extra scene with Daredevil. I mean, with Bullseye. I'm not going to go into details with it, but just to let you know, like, just how flamboyant, if you will, like he can be, and just how
it's like I said earlier. Colin Farrell is just like voguing the whole movie, like
he's coming up an escalator. Like, imagine just being like this in real life, or just seeing something like this in real life. He's coming up an escalator, and he's just arms out, head back, just slowly going up. Like, oh my God, he's fantastic.
Bullseye was a theater kid.
Goes to go through
security.
Like goes through and everything. Like I love so much about everything about Bullseye in this movie. Like, even down to like whenever we first see him. Like just from the get-go we see like, okay, yeah, he's freaking good. Yeah. Like sitting there just drinking, I talked to you about this, like he was drinking a beer. and he's just bullseye after bullseye, like with the darts and everything. But the thing that stood out to me is that you don't see him reaching for more darts. So it's like he's holding them all in one hand, and he's just like getting one, throw it, then using his fingers, pulling out the next one, throw it, and just keeps going. All the while, not even looking, drinking a beer, and then whenever,
most likely Guinness,
like he gets the text, hey, got a job for you and everything, hey, give me the money. Who's this clown? That you just watch this guy do this, and your initial reaction is 2 out of 3. What, you thought you was gonna follow that? Like I don't know. I don't get that guy. I don't know what he was thinking. And then I don't know. I love everything about, like, it seems like he's like a magician. Like, with the paper clip, like he just shows a clip and then it's straight. Like that.
That and like it almost seems like he gets some sort of like sexual thrill.
Yeah.
From the act of killing.
Yeah.
Because whenever he has, does the whole paperclip thing, he goes,
yeah.
It's like, it's like he's stealing himself for the moment. And then on the flight over with the old woman with the peanuts, he's like, he's all nervous and then he makes the thump, and then as the woman's suffocating, he's like, it's like he's sucking up her last breath.
He's like right in her face.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. I love just everything about him. I don't care. I don't cringe. I love it. It's over the top. It's flamboyant. I don't care. I love his performance. It's easily one of my favorite Colin Farrell performances that he's ever done. I don't care what anybody says.
I don't apologize for cringing, but at the same time, I'm not saying I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
To me, this movie has one of the best, just overall supporting casts of. I think it's got a better supporting cast than the X-Men movies, than the Spider-Man movies. The only other movie I would really put it up against, as far as like on par with supporting cast, is the 2003 Hulk.
Oh
with,
yeah.
Sam Elliott and Eric Bana and all that.
Yeah. Another great movie. I don't care what anyone says.
Amazing.
Went and saw it in theaters.
Incredible, even.
I see what you did there. So, speaking of supporting cast, they could not have nailed the relationship between Murdoch and Foggy more accurately than they did.
Oh yeah,
in this movie.
And I mean, Jon Favreau is just in his element. And he says it in the movie, like he's a +1.
Yeah.
The only way he gets anywhere is he's a +1.
Like, there's so many great lines that he has in that, whenever he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to the party or whatever." So whatever, he's like, "Oh no, we gotta go," and he's like, "Then go." And he's like, "Look at me, Matt. I'm a +1."
Yeah.
The part like to me, probably my favorite exchange between the two of them was just simply at the end, after Kingpin is defeated and he's reading him like an article and all that kind of stuff, and he says like, though there were no eyewitnesses, it is believed by many that Daredevil is the one that brought Kingpin to justice. And Matt, very much just trying to throw him off the trail, just being very much a skeptic whenever it comes to Daredevil and all that, says like, he's like, "Why are you reading that garbage?" And he's like, "Look, it says right there, no eyewitnesses. Bigfoot has eyewitnesses."
Right. Even the alligators in the sewer have eyewitnesses.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, the alligators." Yeah. Okay, so this next thing that I'm going to say that I like kind of comes with a love-hate relationship. because I'm not saying I like the performance, because I don't, but I like looking at her. That's Jennifer Gardner as Elektra.
Okay, I don't fault her performance. I think it's one of those things, kind of like Hayden Christensen as Vader.
Yeah.
An actor can only do so much with what they're given to work with.
Yeah. I mean, there were moments to where, like, I found her, like, okay, but then there's other parts where I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I can't really put my finger on it. There were just certain aspects of her performance that I didn't care for, but, doesn't detract anything away from how I feel about her as an actress or anything. Because I've seen her in, there's a good deal amount of things I've seen her in that I really, really enjoy.
Oh yeah, and whenever this came out, I was of course familiar with her from the TV show Alias. Me and my ex wife, that was like one of the shows we watched,
Yeah.
like all the time, and so I was already a fan. But I will say in this, she seems better in the scenes that aren't action scenes.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that.
And I think part of that is something you and I have talked about. Our man, it's like the director and the studio just found out about like wire work like last week, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!
Hook 'em up!"
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh god.
We'll delve more into that when we get to the things we disliked about the movie here momentarily. But until then, let's talk about a few more things that we enjoy about the film. Your turn.
Oh, okay. Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Like, in this modern age of comic book movie adaptations where characters are changed up, they're race swapped, gender swapped, whatever. I never had a problem with Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin.
I don't know very many people that did.
I mean, for those of you who may not know, all three of you, I'm guessing, the character historically is white in the comics, but but he's played by Michael Clark Duncan, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, his race has literally nothing to do with the character at all. They needed a big man who could act,
and they got him,
and who was charismatic, and that was Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh yeah, they nailed him, and he, like, everything about Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin was just fantastic. That doesn't take anything away from Vincent D'Onofrio doing Kingpin now,
right?
But like at the time. Like, not even just at the time. I just think that that was a great adaptation of Kingpin. Like, yeah.
and I think the movie as a whole could be considered not camp, but slightly like over the top.
I think, and I'll jump more into that about. I mean, well, this isn't necessarily something that I dislike about the movie. It's just I think this movie has a hard time figuring out what it wants to be. Does it want to take itself seriously, or does it want to be over the top? Let's have a fight in the playground with wires attached to us, like
What I was gonna say is, like, yes, this movie is like a little like knowingly over the top.
Yeah.
But to me, that doesn't detract from the movie.
No, it doesn't. I think it has a good blend. Like, I will say, I don't think it knows really what it wants to be, but I think it has a good blend of serious moments, camp moments.
I mean,
and all that.
I think that criticism could be leveled at most comic book movies of that time, if not all.
I was fixing to say, look at today.
Yeah.
With how forced humor heavy the MCU is and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, yeah, like I can, yeah.
Like the only complaint with the characterization of Kingpin I have at any point in the movie is the point where he's saying goodbye to Elektra's father. That was a little too, like, Fisk would be smoother.
It was a little too theatrical.
Yeah, it was a little too on the nose.
Like
Fisk slipping the rose in his pocket.
Fisk isn't gonna walk up to somebody in broad daylight, whispering in his ear, "Let me slip my calling card into your pocket," kind of thing.
Right.
All these witnesses around, like Fisk isn't gonna do that. No. So, but again, that has very little. That has nothing to do with his performance. And
no, not at all.
That with the director, for whatever reason, deciding this is how I want this to happen. Like, you could have done it to where it's like, you know, Wesley could have come and got him and like brought him like off to the side or something like that, you know. And I don't know, there's a part that immediately after that, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna jump into one thing that I was like, that this makes no sense to me, is that, you know, after that happens, he's like, I'm saying goodbye and this and that. He gets up to leave. Elektra is like going after him, like, hey, where are you going? And he's like, oh, stay here. Like, wait, that's your daughter. Like, and Kingpin's already asked about, you know, like in a threatening kind of way, like, hey, how's your daughter? You know, like, so you essentially know you just got threatened by Kingpin, and your first thing to do was, I got to get out of here. To heck with my kid. Like, I gotta go. Like, you know what I mean? And then when your kid comes up to you, like, hey, where are you going? You stay here. Like, just whatever. That part didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But let's jump back onto the train of things that I liked about it. The opening bar fight.
Dude.
Like, I love the opening bar fight scene. I don't, you know, you're going to hear me say it a lot. I don't care what anybody says. Like, I freaking love the opening bar fight.
Absolutely.
You know, as you had said, with how it starts, and it's a little hokey. Like, you're just chilling up there. You know, the guys see him. Like, what are you here for? Justice. Like, you know. But then after that part, where you're kind of like, you know, after that part, though, the whole rest of the fight scene, it's top notch in my opinion.
It's incredible.
And I've told you before that ever since I first watched this movie, a shot that has stayed in my brain ever since seeing it was whenever he does the flip and the camera follows him. Yeah. Like, that's a shot that's just always stuck with me that I've really, really enjoyed. You know, even down, you know, like symbolism that was there and all that stuff. Like, you know, he jumps up on the, you know, the pool table's on fire. He jumps up on it. And I think it expanded on it a little bit during the director's cut, where like he walks over it and everything like that. And so
he's the devil.
Walking
through the fire.
Yeah, like, you know, like you know why he's doing what he's doing. And everything. At this point, he's 100%. Like, you know, no pun intended. I'm putting the fear of God into you right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but yeah, love the opening fight.
and man, like, just the kind of blend of styles of fighting in that fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's like parkour, there's hand-to-hand, there's weapons, there's gunfire. It just...
I like how, you know, we got to see, like, through his vision, that whenever the bullets are firing at him, I don't know if it was put in there in a way like his senses are more heightened to where it helps him out, but like the bullets seemed like whenever he was, it was through his vision, the bullets seemed to have been moving slower. Almost as if like his senses are so heightened that he perceives them as like moving a little bit slower to him or something like that. That's just something
that could be argued.
Like that's something that I picked up on whenever I was watching it, to where I was like, you know, it just showed his vision and it showed bullets coming at him and everything, and I was kind of like, man, them bullets are moving kind of slow, and I was like, I wonder if that was intentional, if it was put in there that way for it to be like, that's how he's able to avoid gunfire. That's how
Yeah.
we've seen in the comics him deflect bullets that are shot directly at him. That he just perceives it just slightly slower than
Yeah.
usual, just because of his heightened senses. So, I don't know.
No, that's a really good touch. Did you catch Frank Miller's cameo in the movie?
I did not. What is this cameo?
Okay. Um, Whenever Bullseye steals the motorcycle and he's revving through the city and everything, going towards Nachos in the limo, whenever we see the guy fall down and it's like the close up of his face and he's like got stuff in his throat or in his forehead, that's Frank Miller.
Okay.
So
okay, I didn't pay no mind to that.
Bullseye stole the motorcycle
from Frank Miller.
From Frank Miller.
That's great. That's fantastic.
And so like I caught that the first time I saw it, just because I was a big fan, but also whenever during the origin scene or sequence really, whenever Jack Murdock is training and he's like the guy who's fixing the fight, he's like, do you really think you took those guys out on your own? And what does he say? He's like Mac, Miller, Bendis, all comic writers.
Well, and also
on the marquee
says Ramita, like he's going up against Ramita, the guy that Daredevil goes to the bar to apprehend because he escaped justice was Quesada.
Yeah.
And I love the fact Kevin Smith's character, his name was Kirby.
Yeah.
Like there was so many little Easter eggs and things like that only people that like have read a good deal amount of comics are going to be picking up on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I mean everybody and their dead uncle knows who Stan Lee is.
Oh yeah, which also makes a cameo in the film. He's the guy that, for those of you that don't know, which I'm sure you do, but it's probably been a while since you've seen the film. Whenever someone's reading a newspaper and they're about to walk out onto the street, Matt like stops him with his stick, and whenever he lowers the newspaper, it's Stan Lee. So like one of the very first cameos that Stan Lee ever did in a big filmography at this point.
Maybe not a whole lot of screen time.
But hey, it's an acting credit, so it counts. Okay.
Oh wait. Joe Pantoliano as Ben Urich.
Oh, dude.
Nailed it.
Love it. Loved it. Yeah, like I loved it. Like there's no way that performance could have gotten any better, in my opinion. Loved all of the like Catholic tones that was in the film and all of that kind of stuff. Overall look and feel of the movie, like I mean, you like we talked about earlier, you literally just feel like, just because it's Daredevil and the type of story that it's telling, you're in an entirely different kind of New York than what Spider-Man's in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just the way that you feel about it. Another thing that I really liked about the movie is that there was a novelization of the film.
I've never read the novelization.
It's good. Not gonna lie. It's not super long. Like it's like under 250 pages. I read it a good while ago. Like not too long after I first watched the movie. I'm amongst all of my friends, I'm notoriously kind of known as like not rereading books. I just don't like a lot of, I don't know why. I don't get a whole lot of enjoyment about rereading books or anything like that. But I will throw out there, like I do enjoy reading novelizations of films because a lot of times like the novelization is based on original like rough drafts of screenplays and stuff like that, and there are changes that get made like for the final version of the film versus what's going to actually be like in the in the novelization and all that stuff. I will say it's not super detail oriented. Like, I like Greg Cox. I think he's a very good author and all that. This one is not one of his best. I would just say that. Like, I mean, it's enjoyable. I think it's worth a read at least once, but don't go into it thinking you're about to read something fantastic, But yeah, like I love reading novelizations to films, and especially films that I love because it's like, okay, I want to see what the differences are and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, there was a novelization to this. So there we go.
Man's going all out. Got the soundtrack, got the novelization.
I'm wearing a t-shirt, like But okay. So that's enough love for right now. let's let's talk about some things that we either dislike about the film or we feel they could have handled better. And I think the first thing that I'm gonna start off with is you and I had talked about before, to where it's like, I don't understand the hate that the movie gets and all of that, but I said that there is one batch of fans that I can absolutely understand why they hate this movie, and that's Elektra fans. Yeah. Because Elektra was not treated with the best anything in this film.
I mean, they got a great actress for the role, but like I said, gave her peanuts to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, she, like, like we were talking about earlier, to where it's like, Elektra is in the Marvel universe considered to be like genuinely like one of the most skilled and dangerous fighters that there is. And in this film, she has 3 fights. First fight we have is pretty much just this throwaway gag of a fight, the playground fight scene, which is just... yeah, definitely, in my opinion, the absolute like lowest part of the film is the playground fight scene, and goes up against Murdoch. He's very much like not taking the fight seriously and all that stuff. Where they have a history of being able like just going head to head with one another. You know what I mean? And he very much just treats the fight as if just like, whatever, all this little girl, she thinks she's all that. And but she gets the upper hand, beats him. But the counter argument to that is that he wasn't taking it seriously. The second fight that we have is he's actively trying to not fight her.
Yes.
Like, so.
And man, okay. So... there is a line that she delivers.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Whenever he's like backing up and he's like, I didn't kill your father. And she's like, liar.
It's always, that line has always been just such a very like undersold, like that's the best you could have, liar. Like, that's the best you could have done. But anywho, so yeah, he's very much trying to avoid fighting her. And it's like, again, this just kind of really shows like the skill difference between this version of Daredevil and this version of Elektra, where he's like, just flat out, I'm just trying to get away from you. And she thinks this is the individual that killed her dad. So it's like, she's coming at him with everything she's got. And still just not. He's just like, oh, stop. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And so then, like, stabs him in the shoulder, which, wide open to go for the death blow or to put it in his chest or something. No, I'm going to stab you in the shoulder.
And obviously, if you're familiar with the movie, it didn't hold him back that much.
Yeah, it really didn't. And so then that's the second time we get a fight, and then all of a sudden here comes Bullseye. Challenges her. Daredevil's trying to stop her and everything, which you watch theatrical or director's cut. You would swear Murdoch has been drugged with the like craziest powerful like poison that there is, to where it's like he's lost all strength completely. Like, I'm not trying to downplay getting stabbed in the shoulder, but it's like, dude, we've seen you go through worse.
Yeah.
Like, you were just stabbed in the shoulder, and he's like, oh no. You know, like, he can barely breathe and stuff. And it's like, dude, what kind of like, it's a flesh wound. Like, what do you
whereas, like, after the bar fight and the bar fight leading to the subway thing, he's like brushing his teeth and like casually pulls out a tooth.
Yeah, and just like, oh well.
Yeah.
Like, in the director's cut, I also love one thing, you know, well, I'll get back to something later, but like just more details in the director's cut. Whenever he first goes to stand up, like when we first see him, you know, and he's like, he's in the water, he's drowning out like all the noise and all that kind of stuff. Whenever he kicks over and he goes to stand up, the camera focuses like on his knees. And he very slowly stands up, and you hear his knees just like like cracking and all that. It's like, I thought that was a nice touch to put something like that in there.
Oh, but, yeah, because his knees absolutely take some punishment in this movie.
Yeah. And so, anywho,
man's got freaking pistons built into his legs.
So, anywho, yeah, so, like, he's been stabbed in the shoulder, like Daredevil's man,
which takes all of his strength.
Like Daredevil's man cold. Like, you know, he can't. Like, he's in a bind, dude. You don't even know. So, Elektra is like, okay, I'm gonna go fight Bullseye, you know, solo, because, you know, being stabbed in the shoulder is just the end game of anything. And apparently,
and not just that, but her fighting pedigree up to this point in the movie was a playground fight, some sandbags
that she set up herself, mind you.
Yeah. And studying with a different sensei every year. But you got a freaking billionaire daddy. Of course, the sensei's going to be like, oh, yeah, she's doing real good.
Oh, yeah. She's doing amazing.
Top students. I mean, she even beat my other student, Ronda Rousey.
Yeah. But, so, you know, Daredevil's down for the count. No pun intended. Boxer. But she goes to go up against Bullseye. And, you know, what kind of superhuman strength does she have to, like, oh, I'm on this rooftop, I'm just going to casually jump about 30 feet up to this other rooftop, wires, and sees Bullseye way over there. Okay, the guy's name is Bullseye. You literally witnessed him throw a stick with enough precision, accuracy, and strength to impale your father. Your first thing that you're going to do is throw him a weapon?
Actually, I'm not sure if she saw Bullseye throw Daredevil's staff, because I think she was still in the car. Her father crawled out of the car first.
Well, she witnessed, there's a scene where it shows like the staff like go above like her head or whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, at this point, I think it would be safe to say that she's aware that Bullseye did it, because whenever she's like, oh, I'm going to kill the devil and this and that, and then off with the mask. And it's like, oh, no, it's you. I'm so sorry. And it's like, oh, it was him? Okay, well, I'm going to, like, she got over it very quickly. You know what I mean? But, so,
oh,
yeah.
my bad.
So, throws the guy named Bullseye a weapon. Catches it, lives up to his name, throws it back, and she decides she's going to try to catch it. Worst catch in the history of films.
I mean, she did catch it.
She did catch it, I will say that, but like right through her hand. And yeah, then she's like, okay, so we're going to get the the one-on-one fight between her and Bullseye, and Bullseye just mops the floor with her. Like one of the most one-sided beatdowns. Like, and you could tell, like he's 1,000% not taking that fight seriously at all. Because at one point she cuts him, and he just kind of smirks at her. You know, like I told you earlier, like almost in his mind, it was like, "Oh, you're feisty," kind of thing, you know, and just kept doing whatever.
Well, no, it wasn't just that. So, like, okay, she gets stabbed through the hand by her own freaking sigh. He takes a playing card and cuts her throat, and then he's letting her suffer, and he's creeping closer, and the only thing she can do is,
Oh no, get away from me.
it's like the fight death equivalent of like, not tonight, I have a headache.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, yeah, like I think we talked about this in the last episode, where I was basically like, they took Elektra, who is one of, again, considered to be one of the best, like, hand-to-hand combatants, one of the most dangerous individuals in the Marvel universe and everything, and just essentially turned her into this damsel in distress, just kind of like, oh, you can kind of fight, but you're no match for the guy with the trench coat.
Or with the Billy Club, let's be
yeah,
honest.
like,
and that's kind of sad, because if you're familiar with the comic character, I would put Elektra up there with like Lady Shiva.
Yeah. Elektra's no freaking joke.
No.
But yeah, so that's a big, as much as I love the movie, that's a big black mark for me. That they just, the way that they handled Elektra. You know, you and I talked about before recording something else that's like, again, and this kind of goes back to like the joke that I cracked, where it's like, what kind of superhuman strength do you have? Just the ability to like just jump dozens of feet at a time.
I have the ability to defy physics.
Yeah,
that's my superpower.
Like, you know, like we get at the very beginning, whenever Daredevil suits up for the first time, and it's like he's on his way to the bar to try and take down Casada and all that. Like, one of the first things that we see him do is, I'm just gonna dive off of the side of this building. He is drop about a good 150 feet. And if they had done it like any other kind of way, I would have been okay with it. Of him, like, you know, swinging or, you know, right, something like that. But just to be like, oh, there's some scaffolding right here and I'm just gonna land on it. Perfectly fine. Like, yeah, it gave a little, you know, went on an angle or whatever. Like, that's still a pretty sudden stop.
Yeah. Like, you know, your knees would have been blown out.
That's why they cracked whenever he got up. Yeah. But, so we have that. And then, you know, you have, after, you know, whenever him and Bullseye is fixing to fight, at least Bullseye, whenever Daredevil is like running towards him, Bullseye, at least you kind of see him jump just a little bit and kind of climb to start going up. Whereas Daredevil is just like, nope, 30 feet, I got this, and then just die, you know, just jumps up there.
So, okay. Is it possible he used the Billy Club, the grappling thing, to like haul himself up?
I really can't remember if he did or not. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, there was so much like I'm not going to lie, another part that kind of, you know, stands out to me to where I'm kind of like, every time I watch the movie is, again, after he first suits up and he's on his way to the bar and everything. Like, the amount of, like, backflips and stuff and everything that he's doing, like, going from, like, rooftop to rooftop and everything. It's like, dude, you're being so extra. Like, just go. Like, you know? Yeah.
my thing, and I mentioned this earlier, it's like there was a spring attached to the back of his cowl. because I mean, beginning with the Elektra fight, that thing's just on a kind of thing. Because I mean, let's count. Okay, he gets unmasked by the priest at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Leading to the flashback.
Longest flashback in film history.
Yeah. Yeah. It is great though.
It is.
Unmasked by Elektra.
Yeah.
Unmasked again
by the priest, which led to the the flashback. So we just essentially saw that as a replay.
And then unmasked again by the Kingpin.
Yeah. Like just everyone was just yanking that mask off.
Yeah. And I mean, like, Bullseye didn't just...
He didn't care.
He could have. I'm sure he
could have.
He just didn't care.
Like...
And...
he didn't care.
Also, Urich figured out his secret identity pretty freaking easy. Like, maybe if you're going to a party in your civilian secret identity, maybe don't carry Daredevil's stick. Yeah. Maybe keep that in your back pocket or something.
Yeah, maybe. Like, yeah, that part has always gotten to me, to where it's sitting there like, really? You just kind of walk around with your own, the same thing that you use to fight crime with? That's the same exact thing that you use.
Right. I mean, it's not like Bruce Wayne walks around with the utility belt all the time.
Oh, yeah. I do like whenever he knocked it out of his hands, though, and he picked it up. He's like, cool color, and Matt's like, I wouldn't know. Okay. So one thing that's like, I kind of don't like about the movie, but at the same time, it's like I kind of understand just because of the time period. It was a little too special effects heavy.
Yeah.
Like, special effects heavy in a way that it didn't need to be.
Well, I mean, this is like post-Matrix.
Oh, yeah. Like
early 2000s, post-Matrix,
So, but, so some of the special effects didn't look super great, but also, it's very early 2000s and all that stuff. Say what you will about, like, the downfall of, like, special effects, CGI, and all that kind of stuff, especially nowadays, where you look at a lot of special effects in today's movies and then compare it directly to films that was made, like, in, like, 2008, 2009, or something like that, and the ones back then just blow a lot of stuff today out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that reason why, I believe, is because back then, they actually had to try hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, we have to put everything, because what the technology is like, we have to put everything we've got into this to make it look as realistic as possible, or we're going to be a laughingstock. Mm-hmm. Kind of. Whereas nowadays, let's be honest here, you have AI apps on your phone that you just type in, generate. And it can generate videos and everything. Not super convincing looking videos, but at the same time, it's like, man, it's that easy now. Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
I think, honestly, depending on the generator, it can be convincing.
Yeah. But
yeah, the man.
How tall was that church him and Bullseye was fighting in?
Freaking tall.
200 yards. Like, not feet, yards.
Because, like, I mean,
and just organ pipe after organ. Like, they're directly trying to play music for God in that church. Like, they played a secret chord.
Man, and it just...
the Lord said this.
So some of the stuff from the fight scene with Bullseye, like, obviously the ridiculous amount of, like, pipes from the pipe organ. The part whenever, Bullseye runs out of shurikens from his belt buckle, breaks the glass and and then just
well, apparently throws one entire handful at once.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other handful he's got to go like that.
He's making it rain.
And Daredevil ultimate defense to be able to dodge projectiles is just do multiple backflips.
Even though he already blocked
yeah.
Like
effortlessly.
Yeah.
But again, for some reason this time it's like, nope, we're just gonna do like 3 or 4 backflips in a row, and
which is gonna take me further away from the person I'm trying to catch.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
see, we can be critical about something that we love.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anyway, what?
The thing that clinches it with Daredevil winning the fight, which you could argue he didn't win the fight. He just stopped the fight.
I think, other than due to outside interference, I think it's safe to say it pretty much ended in a stalemate. More in favor of Bullseye than Daredevil at that point.
Now, granted, he was, he had been stabbed through the shoulder. Obviously, that affected his ability with his good arm to grapple down into the church because he lost his grip and like at the beginning of the movie.
Shoulder stabs, nothing to shake a stick at there, Ian.
Or Billy Club. Then he got hit in the throat with the offering plate. Remember that?
Ridiculous.
But
I know this is titled "In Defense of of Daredevil 2003," and we don't sound like we're defending it right now, but I mean, it's all in love.
Yeah. But somehow Colin Farrell's Daredevil survives.
Bullseye.
I'm sorry. Yes, Bullseye survives being tossed from the monumentally tall
200 yards up, mind you,
onto the windshield of a moving car.
Well, it's just a pretty doggone powerful windshield.
Yeah.
That all it did was just crack and not go in or anything.
And then, remember from 600 feet up, what'd you say, 200 yards?
Yeah.
Even if this cathedral, even if the building starts directly off the side of the street, no sidewalk, no nothing, it's got to be at least a 4-lane highway, and Daredevil just, and jumps completely across.
And that's why
no Billy Club.
And that's why his knees crack.
God.
Yeah, the superhuman leaping abilities of
all the
characters in this film is it's crazy. I'm
curious. Did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon come out before this movie?
I think so. Pretty sure it did.
I mean, that's half the answer right there.
Yeah.
And then, once he finally makes it to the final boss fight, because Bullseye was just a henchman.
Mm-hmm.
Dude gets ragdolled.
Yeah, pretty bad. Which, you do hear Kingpin actually say he wishes he had a chance to fight him in his prime.
True.
And all that. I think he said it's a shame you came here wounded.
Yes.
Or something like that. I love whenever he breaks the water.
Yeah.
And all of that. And
that was cool.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool scene. You and I had talked about this before starting to record and all that, is that whenever Ben, in the director's cut, there's a scene where like he approaches Matt and pretty much lets him know he's going to be running the story. And Matt lets him know, he's like, if you run that story, that's going to be the end of me. And Ben's just kind of like, he's like, well, I'm a journalist. You know, basically like, I got to do what I got to do kind of thing.
It's what I do, lawyer boy. You know, like.
And so, you know, at the end, you have the, like, he types up the entire story and everything, a devil named Matt Murdock and all that. And just before hitting print
or delete.
Yeah, he
apparently those buttons are right next to each other on the keyboard. I've never seen that.
I've never, yeah. But just before hitting print, he decides no, he's not going to run it. Delete, starts deleting. Me, like, you would have deleted it a lot faster if you just, like, you know, click
scroll, and
drag, delete. Yeah. There, it's all done. Talk about being theatrical. But anyway, so Ben comes out. And, you know, you and I talked about this. I was like, Daredevil's there.
Yeah.
And he's in costume.
And it's never stated why
he's there. It's never stated why he's there. But to me, it's like, I think, you know, and I don't know if this was intended to be this way. Probably not. But it's like, you know, headcanon, read between the lines and all that kind of stuff. If he pretty much knows, like, hey, Ben was like, he's going to run this story and everything, what other reason would Daredevil have to be there?
Ben was about to get messed up.
He's about to get messed up. Like, you better not see me come out of that building with them papers in your hands. And
or let me hear the rustle of them papers in your hands.
I know where they are. Well, you know, it tells him go get them, Matt, and everything. And so then he leaves, like, little ending monologue and all that kind of stuff. Calls himself a guardian devil, which pretty much the ending shot is
a recreation
of that cover right there.
And the opening shot of the movie is also a recreation from this. I think it's cover of issue 2, maybe? Where he's holding the cross on top of the...
Yeah. While he's digging for that, you know, theatrical version is what it is and everything. I firmly believe that if they had released the director's cut to the film, yes, there it is right there. If they had released the director's cut to the film, I believe that overall the movie would have had a better reception.
Agreed.
But unfortunately, the director's cut has an additional 30 minutes of footage, which brings the grand total length of the film to, I think it's like 2 hours and 13 minutes or something like that. Maybe even like close to like 2.5 or something. At that point in time, it wasn't super popular to release, like, it's become more common now.
Oh yeah.
But like, it wasn't super popular to release films generally like 2 hours or above, especially like 2.5 or something like that.
Well,
unless it was actually meant to be an epic film or something.
Right,
like that.
And this was completely not the case for superhero films.
No, because at this point in time, this is like, this is just a superhero movie.
Exactly.
And in their minds, it was kind of like, who would go and watch a superhero movie for almost 3 hours? You know, boy, how times change, huh?
Right.
But, you know, the director's cut, 30 minutes of additional footage. We have an entirely new subplot that is completely absent from the theatrical version, in which Coolio is on trial.
That immortal actor known as Coolio. The inspiration to thespians everywhere. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so he's on trial. I'm not going to get into super big details or anything like that, because chances are, if you've seen the theatrical version and you hated it, you didn't turn around and be like, oh, I got to watch the director's cut. So I'm not gonna, give any spoilers or anything like that. But it's also just chock full of not just that little, not just that additional plot line. It's just there's other little scenes that's thrown in there that I think just makes the movie better overall.
Mhm.
Such as whenever he has the interaction with Ben,
Mhm.
and Ben's like, "I'm gonna run this story. If you run that, it's gonna ruin me." Not in the theatrical version. The part, like I said, where
The bullseye security scene.
yeah, the whole security scene, the part whenever uh Murdoch is getting up out of the water and all that stuff. And it doesn't just focus on his knees and you hear them crack. Like, it goes into more detail of showing other parts of his body, and you see a lot of the scars, and you see just a lot of what he's been through. Like, um, this kind of goes back to me saying this movie didn't really know truly what it wanted to be. Because this movie is, I think it tried to do too much at once. I think that's a big problem that the film had, because it tried to be an origin film with the flashbacks. It tried to be Daredevil is already very established. Like, I mean, to the point to where the blind man has a costume.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, um, tried to throw in very iconic
Oh yeah, yeah.
issue
The whole,
there. Try to throw it in
Electra
there.
saga. Yeah.
Yeah, try to throw all of that in there. Like, it tried to be too much. Way too much. Now, what could they have taken out of that? I don't know. To me, personally, I think one thing that they could have taken out, like, Elektra could have just been, like, don't have her in there. Like, you could have worked around to make it to where it's just like a crime drama film
Yeah.
or something like that. But
Like introduce Elektra at the end.
yeah, or at least
for a sequel.
Yeah, or at least just give a teaser
Yeah.
or something. You don't even have to introduce her or whatever. But yeah, I believe that that's one thing that the movie didn't have going for it. They tried to do too much. Tried to cram way too much in there. Um, doesn't really have an identity. Doesn't really know if it wants to be campy. Doesn't know if it wants to be funny. Doesn't know if it wants to be serious and all that. Which, I mean, there's some very, very serious moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that I think of is, like, a lot of times, and you don't really see this a lot of times in superhero films, is whenever Daredevil goes and chases that one goon and tells him to stay out of Hell's Kitchen. And the guy is pretty much telling him, like, this is going to be the Kingpin's territory now. And so, like, Daredevil just continues, just beats the crap out of the guy, leaves him unconscious. The guy's kid was there.
Yeah.
And the kid is crying and everything. And Daredevil's trying to convince him, I'm not the bad guy here. Like, you don't think about that from that perspective very often. You know what I mean? And this movie kind of, like, opened your eyes to that a little bit, in my opinion.
No, I think the movie was crafted with a great deal of love for the character and the world, and that's thanks to the director, honestly.
Yeah, writer. He wrote and directed the film.
Yeah, and he had been kind of tossing his name into the hat for years to try to get this made.
Oh yeah.
So
like a lot went into this movie. Was in developmental hell for a pretty good while. Like, went through a lot. I mean, there was lots of. I think Matt Damon was offered the role. Guy Pearce was offered the role. Yeah, like it took a. I mean, they've been trying to get this movie off the ground since the 90s.
Yeah,
like mid 90s, I believe. But yeah, I think. Again, if the director's cut had been what they actually released, the film would have been received a whole lot better. But again, this was during a time superhero movies were not viewed as like the big moneymaker that they are now. And so pretty much the only type of movies that it's like you could really expect that's going to be in like the 2.5 to 3 hour length mark to be is something that's considered like an epic film, something like maybe one of the Lord of the Rings films or something like that. Okay, we expect that to be kind of long, where it's like, oh, just this superhero movie.
I think that goes towards how the source material is considered. For a long time, comic books were just considered throwaway stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that, I mean, it's become like a thing in comic book culture. You've heard the stories about, oh, my mom threw all my comics out, or
Mm-hmm.
I went to college and all my comics got thrown out or given away.
Yeah.
That's not the case with stories that have been lovingly accepted and cherished pretty much since their introduction, and that, like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Very much accepted it. Oh, this is fantasy, but this is a grand epic fantasy.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we could have had more if this film had been received better. Affleck, he openly admitted that Daredevil was like his favorite character whenever he was younger and all of that, and he wanted to do more after this. Like he had expressed interest in doing a live action Born Again, like actually based on the comic book arc, not just simply called Born Again. He had talked about wanting to do like Guardian Devil at one point.
That would have been
great. But yeah, it got to the point to where like after the movie came out and it was received the way that it was, um, he had flat out sworn he said he would never play a superhero again.
Right.
Like that's just how much this movie like kind of messed him up. Like just the reception that it got and the hatred that was directed at him and all of that unjustly.
Agreed, unjustly, because I actually had zero complaints with Affleck's performance.
Of all the problems that this movie has, many of them you and I just discussed, Affleck is not one of them.
Agreed.
And I'm not saying that just because I'm a fan of Ben Affleck. I thought he did very well in the role of Matt Murdock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't.
And
one of them deals, if you hated it, you're just being a hater. Because he didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion.
And I will gladly say, whenever I first watched this movie, years ago, I was not like some big like Affleck fan, Mm-hmm. And I think you and I talked about this last night. Like, I had seen him in Mallrats. He was meh in Mallrats.
Yeah.
I don't have a great deal of love and affection for Armageddon, as we've talked about. No complaints with him in that movie, but the movie's just never really done it for me.
Yeah.
But really, it's just a long about way of saying I didn't go into this movie just being like, oh yeah, Affleck, know. No, he won me over with this movie.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, it was with this movie to where it's like, anytime I would see him at that point, like, that's the guy that played Daredevil. Like, that's just how my brain treated him and all of that. We could have gotten some pretty good stuff. I would have loved to have seen the Born Again storyline, specifically in this universe, played by Affleck and all of that. Michael Clark Duncan had expressed interest in reprising his role as Kingpin, but he said he wanted to lose weight. He wanted to get in shape. Like, and the excuse that it was going to use was that he had been training while he was in prison to prepare for a rematch against Daredevil, which I would have loved to have seen that. Instead, we got the Elektra spinoff.
Now, I will say, the Elektra movie got something right, which I feel is one of the only things truly lacking in the story presented in this film, which is Stick.
Yeah. Like I kind of skipped over that. things that you disliked about the movie, and that's the absence of Stick.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know the movie already had a whole lot going on, but I mean, if you're gonna go as far back as being a child, showing how the stuff gets in his eyes, like you could have taken. We didn't need a lot. You
No,
could have
no.
just taken 5 minutes to introduce this character, and say like that's who trained him. Because to me, I would have taken a 5 minute like introduction. He's blind. I'm going to teach you how to use this to your advantage and all of that kind of stuff. I would have taken that over just simply I trained on the rooftops.
Yeah. And
Like,
and I do feel in retrospect like the whole origin part of the story, it didn't have to be shown in the manner in that it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It could have been sprinkled in a little bit.
Yes.
We didn't need a whole like 20-minute section of the film dedicated.
Yeah. Bloop. There you go.
Like, yeah, he's a kid. And yeah, we didn't need that.
Like start with Matt Murdock in court. He catches Quesada in the lie. The bar fight at Josie's, and then like when he goes back to his lair,
and he lays down in the water.
Then sprinkles
like
some
that's
stuff
whenever
in.
we could have gotten some stuff in. I think that's another, like, pacing can kill a film.
Yeah.
And I think that the film made a big mistake with its pacing, mainly at the beginning. Because, we see the beginning, you can put two and two together, figure out something happened to Daredevil. You see the blood, like, on the side of the building and everything. He's injured in some kind of way, falls down, the priest, like, pulls his mask off and all that, like, that leaves you with, okay, what the heck has happened? Like, you have this big question at the beginning, what the heck has happened? Immediately following that, like, we're not going to tell you for an hour.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right. So with that, he falls down, the priest unmasks him, first of many times he's unmasked in the movie. And then and then but like you said, from there, instead of showing his whole freaking life,
yeah,
like what's his name, Dewey Cox from Walk Hard, Matt Murdock's got to think about his whole freaking life.
Yeah.
But yeah. From there, go to the court with Quesada.
Mm-hmm.
Then sprinkle stuff in, and it would have taken a whole lot less time.
Yeah, and I think if you would have, in some capacity, put that opening bar fight scene more towards the beginning of the film.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I think that really would have helped. I think it would have helped audiences kind of gauge it a little bit better.
Well, and structuring it that way, it would have been a heck of a lot closer.
Yeah.
It would have been courtroom. Are you aware perjury is a crime, Mr. Quesada?
Yeah.
And then that night, bar fight.
Yeah. And then after that, like you said, like, he goes back, lays down into the water and all that kind of stuff. And when the camera's like on his face, that's when you do like the slow, like, fade out and everything. And they say your life flashes before your eyes, even for a blind man, and then go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that by the time we get through all of the origin stuff, it's like people had kind of already lost interest in
the pacing of
the question that was presented to us at the very beginning of the film as to what happened. Why is he bleeding? Like, why is he in the situation that he's in? Like, we're at this point 20 minutes in. We've seen everything that's happened whenever he was a kid. Maybe now we'll get this question answered. Oh, no, now we're back in the courtroom drama now. And you know what I mean? And so it's like, by the time we finally get to the point where it's like, what happened at the beginning of the film? we're well over an hour in. And it's one of them deals to where it's like, at this point, you're like, he was stabbed in the shoulder. That's it.
Yeah.
It's literally it.
Apparently that completely incapacitates him.
Yeah. Like, I'm stabbed in this shoulder, so I can't grip right with this arm. And, like, whatever. And then, like, boom, we're caught back up. And then
but
it's
I
like,
recover
okay.
enough to put up a heck of a fight.
Yeah, not just a heck of a fight.
A skyscraper of
like
pipe organs.
jumping 30 feet and all this stuff. Like, yeah, it's just, yeah. The pacing of the film could have absolutely been better. And I think it absolutely hurt the film by putting it in that structure like they did.
Mm. Now, while it could have been structured better, I thought that the origin, apart from Stick's absence, was extremely faithfully depicted.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I have absolutely zero complaints. I mean, the guy playing Jack Murdoch was fantastic. Just everything. The kid playing Matt.
One thing that I like is that they actually made Jack more likable. Because, in The Man Without Fear, like, he strikes Matt at one point just because it's like, oh, you got in a fight? Well, I'm going to fight you. Like,
well, yeah,
I
mean, Jack's whole thing was he wanted Matt to be better than him.
Yeah,
don't be a fighter. Be smart.
Like, if you hit anything, hit the books.
Yes.
Like, yeah, they made Jack likable to the point to where, like, whenever Jack dies, you don't just feel bad for Matt that he lost his dad. You feel bad for Jack. And it's like he was trying to turn his life around. You just get that one little line of dialogue after Matt gets blinded to where he says they both made a promise to do better.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you see Jack,
he's living clean.
Like he's not
training
drinking,
hard,
he's training hard and all that kind of stuff. And you get just the slightest glimpse of, well, it wasn't all him because, like, these other fighters were paid to take a dive. But then when he's like, this is your turn to take a dive now and everything. No, he still was like, I'm going out on my own terms.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And, like, he goes out in a very heroic kind of way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the way it was put in the Man Without Fear comic. Jack actually says to his corner man, I'm going to show my son. His old man might be a loser, but he's no quitter.
Yeah. Like, yeah. But yeah, overall, again, don't give a hoot what anybody says. I love the movie.
To me, this movie did. Okay. The reason this movie still stands out to me is it captured the essence of what makes Daredevil a compelling character and his universe so much fun to dig into. Better than most of its kind of movies at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to go into super big detail with it or anything, but yes, this film did spawn the Elektra spin-off film, which
sadly, I saw that in theaters. I miss seeing Daredevil in theaters, but I'll go see friggin' Elektra.
Probably what it'd do is like, I love Daredevil, surely I'll love this. Halfway through, you're like, this is crap.
I was choking my gum, dude.
Yeah, but in the director's cut of Elektra, Ben Affleck actually makes an appearance as Daredevil, so actually officially marking his second appearance as Daredevil. But yeah, we're not going to talk about the Elektra movie. Like,
you'll thank us.
Because really, that would just be. Let me tell you what's wrong with it. Like, This one's called In Defense of Daredevil 2003. That one will be called We're Ripping Apart the Elektra movie or something, you know.
You ain't gotta try too hard.
No, you don't. Just be like, here, watch it. There, we tore it apart. Just let the movie speak for itself.
Now, that is one movie I would have liked to have seen what the original treatment for that film was to have been. Because there's not a lot of action in that movie at all. There's more movie. I mean, there's more action and yeah.
There's more movie in there.
There is more movie in Daredevil than there is in Elektra. There's images on a screen, but there's not story. There's not action. It's something that a bunch of people collaborated on, that they fever dreamed some kind of sense into it. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, you know, the fact that Elektra in Daredevil, whether she has, what, ADHD, OCD, whatever it is, completely absent in this film, which now all of a sudden it's a very big part of her character in the Elektra movie. Like, I don't know.
Sadly, I want to watch the Elektra movie now. I will torture I'll put myself through that torture tonight.
I'll probably do it with you. Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Then the next episode will be post-Elektra PTSD.
Yeah. You know? That's the title of the episode, right there. So yeah. Love it or hate it. If you haven't seen the director's cut, I would highly recommend checking it out, just because I do believe it is the superior cut of the film. And it might make you change your mind, ultimately, on how you feel about the movie overall. Because I know director's cuts can be pretty, like, a lot of times, you know, director's cuts will, like, they just simply, they rearrange scenes differently, or there's entirely different scenes, or some scenes are just, like, different.
Or there's like
shot different.
Or there's like a whole 45 seconds added, like the road cut. But I would actually let me see. I would actually recommend, if you want a completely immersive experience, get both versions, because this the original version here is loaded with fantastic special features. There's like 2-hour-long documentaries, interviews with the creators of the comic over the years. There's an interview with the consultant for the blind for Hollywood Films, and he talks about his experience, and he talks about how his favorite comic book hero is Daredevil, and he's pretty much like, you know, all blind people love Daredevil. You know, he's like our guy, you know.
Director and producer commentary. This one thing that says on-screen trivia track, which I would imagine.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have watched it with that
like,
on there.
So is that just something like, just for example, like if you're watching it and it comes to the part where it's like Jack the Devil Murdoch versus Ramita Jr. Or Ramita, you know, it'll be like, oh, Ramita was actually the artist, you know,
right,
you know, like that kind of stuff. 6 production featurettes. The screen test for Jennifer Gardner, a Kingpin featurette, 3 music videos, and much more.
Like, it is seriously loaded with special features.
Like, you don't get this kind of features on just a regular DVD release no more.
You don't.
Like, this would, like, you know, nowadays, like, this would be like the ultra deluxe edition that costs like $29.99 or whatever, and like, if you want even more than that, you know, here's the 4K Ultra Blu-ray Super Duper Promo, like, you know, just whatever.
That, and if you're really a glutton for punishment, also get the Elektra director's cut, because it comes with an exclusive comic book that is only with that edition. That is like it ties both movies together. And then, just get your 2-disc theatrical cut, tuck your director's cut disc in there. You got the best of both worlds.
You're good to go. Good to go. Check it out. Seriously. Like, don't just... As you said, I definitely believe the film is more forgotten now than it ever was. Because upon its release, it was pretty much destroyed. And because it was so disregarded, I think there's a whole lot of people out there that while we've constantly heard of, like, Blade and X-Men and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and, like, we've gotten, in this day and age, we've gotten Blade has come back in Deadpool. Elektra has come back. Tobey Maguire was back in the Spider-Man movie and all of that stuff. He was mentioned. Daredevil was in Deadpool and Wolverine. But I think there's a pretty good chunk of newer fans out there that's just never even seen this movie.
Right.
And I think that if they watched it, I think it would actually help the film. Because there's so many people out there that just straight up talk about this movie as if it's just like trash. I think that if enough people watched it, they would kind of be like, well, that's not near as bad as people made it out to be.
Right.
Kind of thing. I think the only thing that would really hurt it at this point is because of the Netflix/Disney Plus TV show. It would get directly compared to that.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I think it's still going to not be seen in a very positive light.
Now, another positive about this film, in both incarnations, is the very real on-screen chemistry between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner.
Well, it was, I don't think it was during the making of this movie. I think it was actually...
I think they met while making this movie.
No, it was this movie. They met, they worked together on Pearl Harbor.
Was she in Pearl Harbor?
She was. Very, very minor.
Okay.
Very, very minor character. But yeah, she was in it. But, like, I think this is the movie that they met on, in which, she was married at the time, and he was actually engaged to Jennifer Lopez.
Naughty boy. Naughty.
Living up to the Murdoch name, let me tell you.
For those who don't know, Murdoch is like the man whore of the Marvel universe.
He really is. But, so, started a very long relationship between those two. I mean, they broke up, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Oh, longer than that. But they've maintained a really good co-parenting relationship. Yeah. And that is to be commended.
Well, I want to say it was after they had split. I want to say that whenever he was going through like a lot of his alcohol problems and everything, due to like the Whedon cut and of Justice League and all that kind of stuff, like I think he was staying with her for a while, and she's actually the one that was like really helped get him into rehab and all that kind of stuff.
No, in all honesty, like their story, because I am a big Affleck fan, I am a big Jennifer Garner fan. It's almost like I wish they could make it work.
Yeah, me too.
What I mean?
Because for the longest time, I was like, oh man, Daredevil and Elektra's together in real life.
Right.
I'm cool with this. And then whenever they split, I was one of those guys that I'm like, no,
exactly.
I'm super invested in this at this point,
Yeah, and like, okay, their chemistry on screen to me is comparable to like Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Just like, it's electric. No pun intended.
You beat me by that. But yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a good movie. If you haven't seen it in a long time, just revisit it. Like give it a shot. Don't listen to critics that want to do nothing but badmouth it or anything. Quite frankly, don't listen to us that just sit here and praise it like there's no tomorrow. Watch it, form your own opinion, see what you Say what you think about it.
I mean, we're not just giving it empty praise. I mean,
No.
we
I think we did a very good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna toot our own horn.
It was a balanced review.
I think we did a very good job of. This is what we love and what they did very well. Versus this part over here was stupid. What were they thinking?
And it is probably a little more than slightly a product of its time, but you can't fake heart.
Mm-mm.
This movie has heart.
I think it tried very, very hard. I think everyone involved tried very, very hard. And, you know, they played the hand they were dealt.
Yep.
And they lost. But, yeah, check it out. You know, as he said, check out the theatrical and the director's cut. I highly recommend both of them and everything. And, yeah, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll see... you know, if more like Deadpool / Wolverine stuff may happen in the future or whatever, maybe eventually one day we'll see multiverse-wise Affleck's Daredevil make another appearance or something in some kind of regard.
That would be fantastic.
It would. I would love that. I've been hoping that just because it falls under the Disney banner now, like that they would release a little bit more. Like, I mean, if we can get, like, Marvel Legends figures or something like that, like, from this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Or just, you know, anything like that. Like,
yeah,
I would just...
There wasn't much merch at all for this movie.
No. No. But, alrighty, I think that just about does it for this. So, yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one. You know, again, like I said in the previous episode, you know, look behind the curtain and all that. We've been sitting here talking Daredevil for about 4 hours now. And I've got zero problems with that.
Same.
You know?
Same.
So, yeah. Alrighty, guys. I think that just about does it. Again, recommend the movie. Go check it out. Please do the whole like and subscribe thing. It would really help us out and all that stuff. And
let us know what I mean, just give us some suggestions for what you want to see from future episodes.
Yeah.
Do you want to see more movies? Do you want to see more comics? Do you want to see something different? I mean, we're both big music fans. We're both big readers, period. We do both read books that don't have pictures at all. So
we like words.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so, you know, just let us know down in the comment section if there's anything in particular you want to see us do or whatever. But, you know, again, go check the movie out and all that. I think it's better than what a lot of people give it credit for. But with all that said, we are those podcast guys. I'm Kal.
I'm Ian.
We'll catch you next time.